Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to the Lettermen Row YouTube channel. It is the Monday after Ohio State's college football playoff assignment. The Buckeyes get to stay home for the first round of the college football playoff. They'll play Tennessee on December 21st at 8 p.m. on ABC and ESPN. That is very exciting news. That's the 41-year vet, Tim May. I'm Spencer Holbrook. Thanks for being here. Thanks for hanging out with us on a Monday. It is the day that the transfer portal opens, so we've got a lot of stuff going on in that regard as it pertains to the 2025 Ohio State roster. But the 2024 season is still marching on, Tim. And despite the loss to Michigan, Ohio State has the fifth best odds to win the national championship entering this 12-team college football playoff. Get past Tennessee, you get to play Oregon. Get past Oregon, you get to play a team that you probably match up pretty well against, Texas. And then the other side,
it won't be Arizona State.
The other side of the bracket is what it is, Tim. First thoughts on Tennessee, but also just that side of the bracket. Now that we've had a little bit longer to dissect it, it's a tough draw for Ohio State, but they did this to themselves with that loss to Michigan. And if they're one of the best teams in the country, like they believe they are, any draw would be better than no draw at all.
Yeah, but I'm looking at this bracket. I'm looking at this lineup, and I don't really see a smooth sailing for anybody. In this thing. So I'm not looking at it like you would look at a NCAA tournament, basketball tournament bracket. I think everybody. I think there are a lot of capable teams in this. If you're off your A game, you can get beat. Even if you're on your A game, you can get beat. Tennessee is an interesting draw as far as I'm concerned for Ohio State in the sense of it was a lot of people down there believe it was an underachieving team from the standpoint of going to Arkansas and getting beat. And then, of course, getting beat by Georgia, which is now the number 2 seed in this tournament, but lost at Georgia. Kind of reminds you a little bit of Ohio State's schedule, whatever you want, or excuse me, results from the standpoint it got beat by a 6-5 Michigan team, but it was a rivalry game. I'm not sure Arkansas Tennessee's a rivalry game. I guess they are contiguous, but on opposite ends of their states. But then past that, but then they got beat by a Georgia team. They took a lead early and then kind of ran out of gas, or Georgia shot holes in their gas tank. You can look at it either way, but these are two fairly similar teams in the sense that Ohio State, I think most people would agree to this point, is underachieved. It has no gold pants. It has no Big Ten championship, didn't even play for the Big Ten championship. Tennessee, they beat in-state rival Vanderbilt, which was a surprising team this year, but not at the end of the year. And so I'm looking at this matchup as being two teams looking to grab something from the 2024 season that they can hang their hats on. And it should be a quite interesting matchup with temperatures in the 30s at 8 p.m. on Saturday night, December the 21st. Everybody thinks this is what you want, a Southern team coming north to play a Northern team on the first day of winter in their stadium, open air stadium. I'm not sure it is. I got to be convinced of that. Spencer convinced me of that that's an advantage for Ohio State, except for the home team crowd. But we saw Ohio State play this last home game. The home team crowd did what it could, but the team didn't.
Yeah, here. So I told myself I wasn't going to do this. I'm going to rant about this. I don't care. If you think that it's a disadvantage,
I've spurred you.
If you think it's a disadvantage for Ohio State to play at home, shut up. You are stupid. You are just you are not a smart individual. Okay, maybe the fans will boo when you don't convert a third down. Who cares? Yeah. You get to sleep in your own arrangements the night before. You don't have to travel. You get the day of the game, since it's a night game, you're going to be in your own home hotel doing your normal routine. You also, no matter whether the fans are angry at you if you don't convert a third down, or you don't, stop Tennessee on a third down, or they're happy with you when you score a touchdown, when you run out of the tunnel, that you are not going to be booed. Okay. The dumbest thing I heard was from stupid Kirk Herbstreit talking about how this crowd was just going to go nuts and boo this team the whole time. It is stupid. Tennessee was given 3,500 tickets. If Tennessee fans buy more tickets than that, that's fine. But to say that this will be not a pro Ohio State crowd in this game, you are stupid. So it is an advantage for Ohio State to be at home. It would not be an advantage for them to go on the road in a tough environment with a center who doesn't have as much experience, with an offense that needs to find its footing. Like, no, it's just not the case. And if I sound angry about this, it's because it's been kind of irritating me, because everywhere I look, people are like, well, would Ohio State have been better off playing a road game? Absolutely not. It is just dumb. And if you
How many
believe
people
that,
are really saying that though? I was making the point of teams coming north, like that's a huge advantage from the standpoint of the weather conditions.
yeah, no,
I've never believed that. I'm talking about, of course, is an advantage to play at home in a first round playoff game. And it should be. I was just pointing out the last time Ohio State played at home, it scored 13 points against its arch rival.
yes. And Ryan Day, and we'll get into this in just a little bit, Tim, Ryan Day did talk on Sunday. I'm not used to him talking on a Sunday. He talked on Sunday a little bit about the adjustments that they're going to make. He said they will do whatever it takes to win. They're talking about offensive line adjustments. They're talking about getting the ball to the playmakers more, learning lessons from a bad game plan against Michigan. The other thing that I think is interesting is a lot of people are conflating a bad game plan against Michigan with a bad team. Like, Ohio State's not a bad team because they didn't have a game plan that fit against Michigan. They just didn't play well enough and didn't have the proper game plan. This is still a really, really good Ohio State team that I will take more often than not on their home field. That's just my feeling.
Gotcha.
I am going to pick Ohio State to beat Tennessee. I think that the Buckeyes are better than Tennessee, but we'll see when it happens. And we'll talk about those offensive adjustments, but I think this matchup is really intriguing. Tennessee has a couple of defensive backs that I really, really like, with a couple of them with at least 3 interceptions. One of them has a pick 6 under his belt. The defensive line for Tennessee is pretty stout. I like what they do up front. Ohio State's going to have to be good and have a good plan against this Tennessee defensive line. I reckon that Ohio State will have a better plan against this Tennessee defensive line and learn its lessons from the Michigan game. Plus, you give this team 3 weeks to prepare. I like Ryan Day in a 3-week to prepare situation. I also like Josh Heupel in a 3-week to prepare situation, but you also like Jim Knowles with 3 weeks to prepare against a spread you out offense. He's seen a lot of those from his time at Oklahoma State in the Big 12 back when it was wide open. It's not as much wide open anymore, but he's seen that. There's a lot of intrigue in this matchup, Tim. And I started diving into it a little bit this morning, and there's a lot to like about Ohio State in this. There's a lot to like about Tennessee in this. And I think it's better than not that Ohio State's playing a home game.
Oh yeah. I mean, see, I didn't mean it that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not even backtracking here. I'm just backtracking on the idea that I would like to see this game played in more favorable conditions for both teams from a weather standpoint. But, temperatures in the 30s with no wind, and the way it's projected right now, 12 days out, it's supposed to be no wind and no precip. I mean, you and I played in the backyard in worse conditions than that way back when we were little kids. Mm-hmm. You not as far back as me, going back to the 1960s. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this matchup for all kinds of reasons. I mean, Tennessee just going basically wholesale to its freshman quarterback at the beginning of the year, Iamaleava, whatever everybody pronounce him. Don't pronounce it. Don't call him late for lunch, and don't call him late for the kickoff. He's a very talented young man who's had some growing pains at times this year, but and he's got some talented skill guys with him, not the least of which is that running back who ran for 1,400, almost 1,500 yards for Tennessee this year. Sampson right on down the line. I mean, they've got players, man. And is their roster as ballyhooed as Ohio State's? No, but it's pretty damn close. And so that's what you're going against. And like you said, Ryan Day, except for that Cotton Bowl game last year when I'm not sure what that was all about, has been pretty good getting his teams ready to play their next game in the postseason. And and I was talking with Matt Wilhelm about this as we were recording the Tim May show for later this week. The Michigan game, you knew Ohio State was going to play again one way or the other after the Michigan game, going into that game. This is a one and done proposition now. This is, if you're ever going to lay it all on the line, this is the game you lay it all on the line in. And if you win this one, then you do it the same thing the next week and a half later against Oregon in the Rose Bowl. So I think all these players, all these coaches understand what's at stake, which I think it really enhances this opportunity.
Yeah. It's going to be a lot of fun. I will say that. Okay, let's move on, Tim. We'll talk about a little bit of what Ryan Day had to say beyond just how excited they are for the game, because we did a lot of that on Sunday after Ryan spoke. One of the big takeaways, and I'm going to write about this for LettermenRow.com on Monday afternoon, Ryan Day mentioned that the offensive line will undergo a shuffle. He specifically talked about Luke Montgomery, the offensive lineman in his second year, starting to make that push, and Josh Padilla, second-year offensive lineman, who is starting to make a push at center. Both of those guys now going to get a look. I think that could do some different things for this offensive line. If those two were both inserted into the lineup, you're talking about Padilla playing center because it's the only place he does play, which would move Hinsman to guard, which is where he has been better, quite frankly, this year. Montgomery, if he's playing guard with Hinsman, that would mean that Austin Sarabeld and Tegra Shabola might be out of a job for the playoff. That is a distinct possibility if they're seriously considering what they're talking about. So I like those changes and the potential for those changes. I would like to see some new things happen there. I do not believe it's even a possibility to move Donovan Jackson out of that left tackle spot because you do not have a tackle for the James Pierce matchup in this game other than Donovan Jackson, who I thought did a decent job on Abdul Carter. I think James Pierce, is kind of that Abdul Carter-like player, except he's more of a true defensive end.
Yeah.
So these offensive changes that Ryan Day's talking about, and then, he also brings up they're going to do whatever it takes to win. That means getting the playmakers the ball, not going back to the inside run that they were doing. It looks like they've got some new things that they're cooking up that they're not ready to reveal yet. And we probably won't know until December 21st when they take the field for the first time as an offense. But when you heard all of those potential offensive changes on Sunday from Ryan Day, where did your mind go? Ohio State fans, let me tell you something about Rowback Activewear. There's only one way to describe Rowback: best fit, best feel. For those who aren't familiar with Rowback, they are completely changing the game with their incredibly comfortable activewear. Rowback just released their new game day collection, and it's awesome. With novel polo designs and clean hoodie and Q-zip designs for some of your favorite schools, it's definitely worth checking out. Nobody else on the market is pairing this level of custom designs with the quality of activewear. Rowback does it better. Rowback's everyday short are the perfect pairing as well. They are comfortable, have an elastic waistband, and great fabric that is made to have the appearance of a nice short, but the comfort of athletic shorts. Rowback is also proudly leading the NIL charge, having signed partnerships with college stars Jalen Milroe, the quarterback at Alabama, Quinn Ewers, quarterback at Texas, former Buckeye, and Ohio State safety Caleb Downs, one of your favorite players on the team. I know it. Among others, they're becoming the go-to brand for college athletes. They've got a lot of Ohio State stuff, the Block O on some things, Ohio State logos all over those polos. Use the code Lettermen20 on Rowback.com for a generous 20% off for all new customers through the end of the week. That's spelled RHOBACK.com. That's 20% off all performance polos, shorts, and more with the code Lettermen20. Go check it out. Rowback Activewear. Enter the code Lettermen20 for 20% off your first purchase from our friends over at Rowback. I've been rocking the Rowback hoodie for a long time. Come join the fun. You've been wanting Rowback. Now you've got a chance to get some Rowback and get the Ohio State logo on Rowback. Go to Rowback.com, Lettermen20 for 20% off your first purchase from the folks over at Rowback.
Well, he had hinted at it obviously on the before, and I'm just looking at what is the ideal, because Tegra Shabola, it was tough watching him play against Michigan at times, but it was tough watching who he was trying to block. Maybe the best defensive tackle in the country, Mason Graham. I mean, it was so. I'm not sure in the interior. Tennessee doesn't have that player, in my opinion. Tennessee's got some talent up front, but they don't have that player, in my opinion, in the interior of the defensive line. So it's kind of like put up or shut up for all these guys in practice. It's, as they go like against like, maybe, good against good in the next week or so leading up to this, who is winning most of the battles or who is holding his own at the guard and center positions, that's who you go with. I'd agree with you. I really liked Donovan Jackson and Carson Hinsman at left tackle and left guard, respectively. If Josh Padilla can go in there and give you what you want from center, which might include more snaps, more akin to what Seth McLaughlin delivers than those loopers from Carson Hinsman, which I thought threw a few things off, even just the timing of plays at times against Michigan. Then go for it. What have you got to lose? I mean, if you're going to pull the trigger, now's the time to pull the trigger, and don't leave it up to what you see in the first 2-3 series against Tennessee. Go with your gut. Go with what you feel is your best starting lineup. I still think Tegra offers you things that nobody else does at right guard. That's a big body, just blocking straight ahead, getting after people. I still think that gives you an advantage in some respects. And so, but if he has to chase somebody, like Mason Graham, we all saw in that third down play, that draw play, Mason Graham took him right on and ran right around him and made that stop, forced a field goal attempt, which was no good. And you don't want to see that a lot against Tennessee. So my bottom line is I think you definitely leave Josh Fryer at right tackle, Donovan Jackson at left tackle, and use if you call them chess pieces, maybe they're checkers, maybe they're checker pieces, but use your chess pieces inside to mix and match and go with what you feel in your gut is your best lineup. With that said, don't put them in situations where, okay, now, get in there and do that. This is the best player in the country, but you can block him. Have an advantage in your head going in, not just stimulating a guy to go out there and play a game he's never played before.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think that they will look for the best combination here with the time off that they have. And not only is it time off here 3 weeks between the Michigan game and the Tennessee game, but then after that, it is 10 days between Tennessee and Oregon if you get past Tennessee, which right
matters
now,
not at this point.
Yeah, which I think Ohio State has confidence that they can get past Tennessee with what they're doing.
You got to go do it.
Yeah, I know that. But
I know you know that. I know that you know that.
I just think that this team is getting a second chance at a senior day. This team is getting a redemption opportunity at home. I do not believe that this team is going to have a hangover from the Michigan game. I think that hangover has already surpassed. You drink all night on a Friday night, you wake up on Saturday morning, and that hangover feels bad. And still at 4 p.m. on Saturday, that thing feels bad. But you get that text from your buddies, hey, meet us at this spot at 9 p.m. You're going to show up, and you're going to be ready to have another great night.
I keep forgetting how much younger you are than I am.
I'm
well past those kind of marathons, but go ahead now.
This is a 2 or 3 week ordeal. And so Ohio State legitimately gave itself a week of a hangover. Like the Buckeyes were back on the practice field on Wednesday and Thursday last week, but it's not like they went right back to the well and said, hey, we got to get back to work on this playoff. Like they allowed themselves that time to regroup. This team, from everything that I've heard, is pretty fired up to get an SEC team in the horseshoe at night. This team is ready to make a college football playoff run. This team's leaders have kind of rallied the troops, and now they go from here. And if you take Ryan Day at his word, which there are a lot of reasons to not do that right now with this fan base. And you know what? I understand that. You're all upset about the Michigan game. Based on what I'm hearing and what Ryan Day has said, this team is going to have a much different attack than the way that they tried to attack and poke and prod Michigan. And if you don't believe that, that's fine. But I will choose to believe that they learned some lessons from the Michigan game, akin to in 2022 when they learned lessons from the Michigan game, came up with a plan and attacked Georgia. I think you will see a plan to attack Tennessee. Now, they lost that Georgia game. Does this mean that they're going to beat Tennessee? No, not at all. But I do believe that the game plan will be pretty sound against a good Tennessee defense for Ryan Day and Ohio State to go out there. And if they execute, they will have a better chance to beat Tennessee than if they executed the game plan they would have had of beating Michigan. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I think they thought their game plan going into the Michigan game was sound.
Yeah.
They thought they were doing the right thing. So that's where it wasn't just the players that needed to step back and needed to be scolded. It was the coaches on the offensive side of the ball, especially as a group or as individuals, whoever, they needed to step back. And boy, man, we flunked that test big time. And that's kind of tough for grown men to do sometimes. But they flunked that test big time. Now it's like, the challenge is to get that game plan. But the main thing is, and Ryan hinted at this even again Sunday, they got the best wide receiver core as a group in the country. And I'm including Brandon Nelles, for example, in that group. Do what you do best. Do what this team can do best. Do where this team has advantages, and I'm sure they're going to do that. You do have to run the ball. I agree with Ryan on that aspect. You do have to run the ball. You do have to establish something of you will run the ball, right? But just like in the NFL, sometimes NFL teams run it just to show you, hey, you better look out. We will run it, which is kind of what Ohio State was seeming to do in that Michigan game. They thought they were kind of spreading them, but they didn't really spread them out in the middle of the field. And then they insisted on pounding at the door that wasn't open, that was fortified, that had 8 bolts on it, 8 bolt locks on it. That was stupid. I mean, for want of another term, or that was not well-founded, I guess is a better, more polite way of putting it. This is a let it all hang out kind of deal. That doesn't mean throw the ball, like Ryan said, 60 times. Hey, but it wouldn't hurt. It wouldn't bother me to see him throw it 40 or 45 because I really think this team is capable of that. And you get the first downs the best way you can get them. If it's the short passes, the death by 1,000 cuts, or if you go deep with one big swing of the blade, that's what you do. And don't be afraid to do it. Don't be afraid to throw the ball to Jeremiah Smith in what looks like almost coverage. I mean, don't be afraid to do that. Let the arguably the best freshman wide receiver in Ohio State history go up and make a play for you. There's nothing wrong with that. Everybody in the NFL does that. Why can't you do that? So that's where I stand on it. When in doubt, air it out.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I do think they will. Here's the last thing that I'll do, and then we're going to get out of here, Tim. Recency bias tells you that Ohio State's game plan was terrible against Michigan, and I completely agree with that.
Their running game plan.
We talked about it ad nauseum. We did. We talked about it a ton. What I think too many people, though, are forgetting is, and of course you have to go to a loss for this, the game plan against Oregon was stellar. They attacked Oregon and did a really nice job of it. Oregon just made one more play than Ohio State, and Ohio State had a controversial pass interference call where they would have kicked a chip shot field goal. And I know what you're thinking. Yeah, Jaden Fielding. He's been really good aside from the Michigan game. I don't care what any of you say. You can attack me. That's fine.
He just hit a huge field goal in that game at Oregon.
He hit a field goal to take the lead with 5 minutes to go at Oregon. It's not like he was terrible all year. He hit a field goal in the fourth quarter and is the reason that Ohio State beat Penn State. So, I know he wasn't good against Michigan, but in the fourth quarter, he's been pretty clutch this year. And, of course, it looks terrible now that I say that. But anyway,
yeah,
they had a great game plan against Oregon. The way that they used Imagn in the backfield was great in a little bit of spurts. The way that they targeted Jeremiah Smith and got the tight end involved early. The way that Imagn had 9 catches, I think, for almost 100 yards and a touchdown. Fast forward to the Penn State game. You have the pick 6 on the first drive, bad play. The very next drive was, clinical, surgical. That's a teach tape for how to script a drive to shut a crowd up. And they marched right down the field.
Yep.
This is not a staff that has routinely had problems in game planning. It's not. And so.
Well, maybe they had problems occasionally in knowing sticking with what's working. You know what I mean? That's the problem I've seen.
So it's been more on the good when it comes to game planning than it has on the bad. I know that sounds terrible, again, because of what we just saw against Michigan. But when they've needed stuff in non-rivalry games and when they're not staring into winged helmets and getting hypnotized by some terrible spell that's got Ryan Day in a trance against Michigan, by and large, it's been pretty good. And that's not me standing up for them. It's me stating the facts.
Yeah.
And so – if you think, Ryan Day's not going to have a game plan against Tennessee, I just don't buy into that. It's whether they end up executing it and can beat Tennessee. I still don't know, but I trust that they're going to have a game plan for this game because they all know what's at stake. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, but I'm looking offensively. I mean, they did, we talk about getting beat by 1 point, 32-31. Where was the defense that night? I think a lot of us were asking that when it needed to play. But, the offense had opportunities, including the drop snap that Will Howard had after it looked like it was going to come right off the goal line, their own goal line, after a great defensive goal line stand and drive the length of the field. Boom, that drive got preempted. So they're – bottom line is, against Michigan, I keep going back down. It really does boil down to this. They had 2 bad interceptions in that game, which thwarted drives or stunted drives, and they had 2 missed field goals in a game in which the gold standard was field goals, and they got beat 16-13 or whatever the score was. It was by a field goal. So that's why they got beat. You can't. The same thing, if you make those kind of mistakes against the Tennessee, there's a chance you're going to get beat because this is a like opponent. This isn't Purdue, this isn't Michigan State. This is more like Penn State, more like Oregon, dare I say it, more like Indiana. I would say Michigan, but Michigan was 6-5. There was no excuse for that loss. You've got to clean it up. I don't care if they're playing it in Ryan Day's backyard in terms of a home field advantage. You can't have those kind of mistakes and win consistently in a college football playoff atmosphere unless the other team matches you. Now, we got to wait to see the game. I'm just going what we saw the last time Ohio State played in its home stadium. It had those level of mistakes, which ultimately cost them the game because nobody cared. Nobody was going to care 20 years from now whether you beat Michigan by 30 or by 3. All that mattered was getting the W. Hence, forward, I said that before the game 2 weeks ago, going into the Michigan game, from there on in this season, nobody cares what the margin of victory is. They only care about the W. That's all that matters, actually. So I think if you take that in hand, but you've like the Georgia game, I just keep going back. They not only were capable of throwing the ball against Georgia, they did throw the ball against Georgia with a great quarterback and a great receiver. And they ended up losing that game by 1 point with their great receiver knocked out of the game and their tight end since the first half in a hospital. The capability is there for this team. Make one good stop in the fourth quarter, but let it all hang out offensively. Boom, there's the recipe.
Yeah, there's the recipe. There's the early recipe. Tim, early lean, real quick.
Oh, I'm leaning Ohio State's way. I think Ohio State's a more talented football team with more capability almost across the board, except maybe for some individuals. But, I'd said the same thing about the Michigan game, but Mason Graham made that. He had 7 tackles in that game. Their defensive tackle had 7 tackles. That just shows you had the wrong idea in that game. You don't have to hit them where they're the hardest. Hit them out wide and then come into the hardest, and I think they got away from that a little bit. They got away from that a lot in that game. I think the coaching staff, as much as anybody else, learned a huge lesson in that game. Don't waste one of the 3 years of Jeremiah Smith. Guys like that don't come around very often, believe me.
So you're leaning Ohio State. Okay.
Yeah, I'm leaning Ohio State way.
Okay. Yeah, you went on a little Michigan tangent again there. I can't.
Well, just because, but I don't know what the plan. You don't know what the plan's really going to be till you see it.
Yeah.
If they have the wrong plan, you and I were both sitting there all throughout the game against Michigan. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Because when you threw the ball, you went clickety clack right down the track and scored a touchdown just before halftime.
There you have it, folks. Tim May, the 41-year vet. I'm Spencer Holbrook. It's the Monday after Ohio State's college football playoff draw. The Buckeyes just 12 days.
One quickie. Devin Brown, bless his heart. He's one of my favorite guys. I've said that many times. He is entering the transfer portal, but he is sticking around. He was Ohio State's backup quarterback against Michigan. We all saw that. He's sticking around through the playoffs. What an interesting era we're living in college football, correct?
Yeah, and kudos to Devin for sticking around, finishing what could be a national championship run. He wants to be here. He wants to be a Buckeye. until he's not a Buckeye anymore. And kudos to him. He's already in the portal, but he's going to stick around. And I think that's really cool for Devin, and cool for Ohio State for letting that happen. A good breakup, I would say, coming after the college football playoff run for Ohio State.
Yeah.
Wherever the Buckeyes are in the college football playoff, we'll be there. Tim made the 41-year bet. I'm just Spencer Holbrook. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening to the Monday after Ohio State's college football draw. Buckeyes 10, 11, 12, whatever days away, just a couple weeks, less than 2 weeks away from Ohio State, Tennessee on December 21st in the Horseshoe in prime time, 8 p.m. It's going to be cold. It's going to be rocking. It's going to be a lot of fun. Tim and I will be there. Lettermen Row will have full coverage. Go to lettermenrow.com right now. Get your membership today. We'll see you over at lettermenrow.com.